VR interaction zones. The VSKYLABS FA Tensor 600X is optimized for VR experience and operation in X-plane. The green zones, shown here, are representing the interaction areas for mouse and/or the VR touch controllers. The VSKYLABS FA Tensor 600X is also featuring interaction zones for adding or removing a passenger and for showing or hiding the first-person pilot figure. Showing or hiding the first-person pilot figure is not affecting weight and balance, as the pilot weight is always added to the aircraft. Adding or removing the passenger will result with corresponding weight and balance change of the additional passenger weight. The passenger will be visualized as well. Let's start with the normal procedure checklist. Before engine start checklist. Passenger briefed and secured. Loose objects removed. Seat belts fastened in tight. Parking brake handle pulled up. Rotor brake off position. Pedals adjusted and free. Flight controls free. Altimeter set pressure. Throttle free, set to idle. All switches set to off. Engine start checklist. Fuel tank selector set to on. Master switch on. Navigation lights on. Igniters set both to on. Propeller and area clear. Starter engage. Hold starter until engine fires for maximum 10 seconds. After the engine is running stable, generator set to on. Avionics on. Oil pressure should build up gradually. Taxi and run-up checklist. Parking brakes apply. Warm-up RPM set between 2000 to 2500 RPM. Engine indications check within limits. Igniters check at 4000 revolutions per minute. Maximum 300 RPM drop should be observed when switching off an igniter. Maximum difference between igniters should not exceed 115 RPM. Throttle set to idle position. Warning lights monitor. Fuel boost pump on. Doors closed and locked. Takeoff checklist. Landing lights set to on. Pitot heat on. Wind check. Always prefer taking off with head-wind component. Rotor brake verify off. Controls free neutral position. Pre-rotate engage. At this point, the clutch system will interconnect the main rotor to the engine to build up main rotor RPM. This procedure is called pre-rotation. Remember, autogyros are utilizing rotor disc lift for flying. During flight, the horizontal component of the relative airstream is initiating auto-rotation of the main rotor and increasing the main rotor's RPM. For the takeoff procedure, the main rotor RPM should pre-rotate to exceed minimum required RPM for safe and short takeoff run. At this point, you should monitor the short RPM needle, which should exceed the mid-yellow to mid-green RPM arc zones. Because the takeoff run is quite short, let's describe the takeoff run process just before we will proceed to the actual takeoff. Once the main rotor's RPM exceeded the target pre-rotation RPM, the pre-rotation clutch must be disengaged. This is simply done by setting the pre-rotation switch to off. At that point, the main rotor RPM will start to drop, as the main rotor is again free to rotate and disengaged from the engine. Because of that, we would not want to wait too long before taking off, simply because the main rotor RPM will eventually decrease below the safe target RPM for takeoff. So, we would want to initiate the pre-rotation process, and then, as soon as we will disengage the pre-rotation, we would want to start the actual takeoff run. Gaining speed during the run will build the main rotor's RPM straight to normal flight RPM and will allow a safe and short takeoff run. As soon as the pre-rotation is being disengaged, release the brakes. Throttle, set gradually but firmly, to full power. Maintain directional control with differential braking and rudder input. As soon as the airspeed indicator becomes alive, pull the stick firmly for liftoff. The FA Tensor 600X AUTOGYRO safe liftoff speed at no wind condition is around 50 km per hour. Once airborne, maintain a nose attitude that will allow a safe climb and minimum airspeed of 60 km per hour. At positive rate of climb and above 500 feet, set the landing gears to the up position. Normally, you would not want to retract the nose wheel too soon, too low, or too slow. Having your aircraft ready for emergency landing in these situations is always a good option.